We start this half hour with a closer look at the top political headlines this week. And joining us are Deputy Political Director Averi Harper and ABC White House correspondent MaryAlice Parks. As always, good morning to you both. MaryAlice, let's start with you first, because this week the federal jury convicted the president's son Hunter of those felony gun charges connected to his drug addiction. Do we have a sense yet of how this could impact the president's reelection campaign?
This week we saw the president as a dad. First, we saw him go back to Wilmington. He hugged his son there. Even on the world stage, the G7 meetings, he talked about being proud of Hunter, about Hunter's sort of struggle and overcoming addiction. I think it was clear this was really devastating for the Biden family, but I am not sure it was actually devastating for the Biden campaign. I think a lot of families can sympathize with a family that has a son struggling through addiction. More than 1 in 6 Americans in the latest government report reported substance abuse. I mean, this is something that all families have experienced, know someone who has experienced. And of course, this conviction cuts against Republicans' argument that the whole legal system is rigged. So I think that Republicans haven't been able to weaponize this in the same way that they probably had hoped that they could. One Biden campaign staffer texted me right after the conviction. He said, this is apples to orange. It was clearly an attack against former President Trump, but it was also them saying, look, there is absolutely no equivalency between the president's son, who's not on the ballot, and former President Trump's own conviction.
And speaking of Trump, Averi, we saw him return to the Capitol for the first time since those riots on January 6th. And he was really embraced by so many Republicans, some of which actually criticized him back then, but now not so much.
Right. It was certainly a strong showing of support for Donald Trump within his own party. And so it's not really all that surprising, given the fact that Trump is going to be nominated to be that party's nominee for president of the United States in just a few weeks. It really reflects what we saw during the entirety of the primary, that former President Donald Trump has a tight hold on this party, not just its elected officials, but its voters, too. But what's really important to note is that in a primary, it's just Republican voters. A general election, you're going to need a lot more than just your most loyal supporters in order to win. He needs to get folks who are independent, swing voters, to come along into his tent. And I don't think that visit to Capitol Hill did that.
That it is very interesting watching that and seeing even some Republicans speak out, like Liz Cheney. But Averi, turning to the Supreme Court now, rejecting an attempt to limit access to the widely used abortion pill. What's the significance of this for both sides of the abortion issue?
Well, this was an important decision because that pill, mifepristone, is a part of the most common form of abortion in this country, medication abortion. And, you know, had there been a different outcome, this would have been something that would have impacted states across the country, even in places where abortion is legal. So we know that this is not the last time we're going to hear about mifepristone. There are anti-abortion groups that say they're going to continue to fight this. There are already some challenges in states across the country, in places like Kansas and Idaho and Missouri. Those are all Republican-led states. So that's important to note. For Democrats, as we approach November, reproductive rights is going to remain a very important issue as they try to mobilize voters to get out to the polls. And a reminder, we could see abortion explicitly on the ballot in numerous states, including some really key battlegrounds.
An issue to follow closely for sure. MaryAlice, let's switch gears a little bit and go to North Dakota, because voters there passing a measure imposing limits on age for those who are running for Congress. Interesting that people are talking about age in politics.
Right? We have talked a little bit about this election. I mean, I thought this was really interesting out of North Dakota this last week. The voters there said that they didn't want anyone running for Congress if they were going to turn 81 during their first term. The Supreme Court ruled 30 years ago that states can't actually add new term limits, so we'll see if this law stands. It would take someone having to sue the state. It's kind of a test to see if the Supreme Court will bring this issue back up. But yes, to your point, voters are talking about age, and it's not just the presidential candidates. It's all of Congress. I mean, I hear voters all the time saying that Washington just feels too old. They think there should have been a generational handover. Former President Trump turned 78 this week. He obviously attacks Biden all the time on his age. Both these men asking for 4 more years, and a lot of voters are hesitant about that.
And either one would be the oldest ever elected president. Depending on how it plays out.
By a few years.
Yes, exactly.
By a margin there.
Thank you, MaryAlice.
All right, you guys. Averi and MaryAlice, thank you both so much for being here. There's always so much to talk about, so this is so useful having you guys.